Welcome to Off the Record, where we take off all the titles and, of course, the public offices that you may be seeing some of our guests in. But also, we go behind the personalities. Who are these people that are in these offices? Who are these people behind the titles? And today, of course, you're not with Aaron Mashano. My name is Lombe Chiti, and I'm standing in for Mr. Mashano. He's feeling a little under the weather, but I will still be taking you off the record. And tonight, off the record, we step beyond the boardroom and beyond the title to meet the man behind one of Zambia's most influential media institutions. For many, WEBSTER MALIDO is recognized as the Director General of the Independent Broadcasting Authority, a communication strategist, former journalist, corporate executive, and leader who has spent decades shaping conversations in newsrooms, boardrooms, and public institutions. But behind the professional achievements is a personal journey marked by ambition, resilience, difficult choices, and lessons learned along the way. From his early days chasing stories as a young journalist to navigating executive leadership in multinational organizations and now steering Zambia's broadcasting regulator, his career has been built on adaptability and purpose. Yet, every professional milestone has also been accompanied by personal experiences that have shaped his outlook on leadership, integrity, family, and service. And so we leave the office at the door and we get to hear his experiences, influences, and values that have defined him. And not simply as a public official, but as a husband, a father, a mentor, a communicator, and a citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome Mr. WEBSTER MALIDO, DG, Independent Broadcasting Authority. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much, Lombe. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was looking at you with my side eye.
Yes.
I'm like, I hope everything I'm saying is like, okay. And I was waiting to see the expressions.
Yeah, let's...
It's quite a CV that you have. But before we get into it, I have some coffee here.
Yes.
Aaron is a coffee guy. I never used to take coffee, but I've learned to take coffee on this show. Can I pour you some coffee?
Yes, please. I'm good with coffee any day.
How many times a day do you take coffee? Just so we know whether you need your doctors.
I try to take it first thing in the morning.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, and I think normally I should take, it twice in a day, but at least once.
Something I'm learning to do.
At the start of the day.
I hear coffee is what, most people who are making heavy decisions take. It's not for tea people, because coffee allows you to have a level head. Is that true?
I'm not saying, a medical doctor, but it helps me to just stay a little bit more alert, awake. That's, what it does to me.
I'm a baby in the coffee field, so this is me asking questions because before we got on the show, he did mention that he does take coffee. Now, getting straight into it, many people who may know you as the executive may want to understand, who is WEBSTER MALIDO before the job titles, before the positions? Who are you?
Yes, so WEBSTER is a Zambian, born 51 years ago, sometime thereabout, in Choma, southern Zambia. Spent my early childhood in the tourist capital in Livingston, where my dad was working. And, a few years after the crash of the industries in the city, my parents relocated, back to Choma. I spent, a bit of some time in the village, actually, before I went to boarding school in Monstown at Rusangu Secondary. And thereafter, I progressed to the University of Zambia, where I studied mass communication. And then went into journalism as a reporter at the then Post newspaper. And I spent, some good 7-8 years before I transitioned into corporate comms or public relations when I joined the then Barclays Bank Zambia, which is now ABSA Zambia. Yes, and I spent, quite many years there in Zambia. And I think that's pretty much my, brief life history.
And I'm going to take you a little bit back.
Yes.
What caught my attention when you said, we left Livingston and went to Choma and we lived in the village.
Yes.
Every time you hear the village,
Yes.
there's a picture that comes to mind.
Yes.
What was life like in the village compared to where you were coming from?
Completely different, because see, when you are young and you're used to living in the, brick and mortar and, proper lighting every day, and then, suddenly you are living in a place where, there's scarcity of almost everything. And then, but you learn quickly to adjust. And then, you just, carry along. The play stuff is different. You spend more time there. Maybe I come from a tribe which is big on livestock and pastoral farming. So you spend more time tending, cattle, as opposed, to playing on the streets in the city. And so it just, completely, shifts the dynamics around your life as a kid.
How old were you?
I would say pretty much between, I think, 10, 12, thereabouts. I spent, I think I did my grades 5 to 7 in the village.
Okay.
Yeah. And then at Masuku, it's the place is called Masuku in Choma, east of Choma. Yeah, then thereafter, I went to boarding school in Monza.
I'm sorry for staying a little bit more in the village.
Yes.
There's always something about the village that you, as you've said, you
Yes.
have to adapt.
Yes.
But then you're a young man.
Yeah.
So it's maybe a young boy then, not yet man, around 10, 12. And so you're saying it's easy for you to adjust. But I would want to know, prior to you going to the village, did you have any knowledge or idea of what tending to, herds of cattle would look like? Or when you moved to Monze in the village, now that was
In
you
Choma,
learning? In Choma first,
Yes, yeah.
That was you learning?
Yeah, no, actually, so I would say maybe the advantage was that what used to happen for us is that every time it was holiday, especially the April holiday, our parents would take us, back to the village. So we had an idea of village life, and we would admire some of our uncles, how they would, take the cattle into the bushes and bring them back later, in the day. And so it was something that was mesmerizing for some of us then as kids, coming from, from the city. And so I'll say the adjustment was, obviously slightly difficult because those were like, transitional. But when we made the move back, it was more like permanent. That was like our new permanent kind of life.
So even when you went to secondary school, you go to boarding school and you come back home in the village?
Yes, most of the time. Although sometimes I would spend time with some of my uncles in Lusaka, in the city. Yes.
So,
but mostly pretty much, back in the village.
Please, how true is it that as you were young, when you're tending to the cattle, you're allowed to even pick one of yours and then begin to also expand your herd?
It's very true. Actually, my grandmother had given a few of us our own animals. It's a tradition. Even when I got married, my dad gave me, a cow, which I think has, quite multiplied over the years.
Beautiful. I would want to hear about the one
as
a child.
So it's a tradition, but actually when we were younger, with my siblings, at the time there was just 5 of us, but we are 9 altogether. And our grandmother would allocate a few of the calves, the newly born calves, to any of us, and then that's your inheritance, sort of.
And you have to multiply it.
Yes, the idea is that they should multiply, and you can look back.
Did you manage to multiply any as a young man first?
I would say yes, but over time there was a massive livestock disease outbreak in the early 90s. I think you had, it's commonly called Denkete. So it
In
wiped
the 90s, I wasn't even a
It
robot
wiped
yet.
off a lot of animals in southern province. Unfortunately, we were also affected, as a family, and so it was. We all had to start building up the stock again
From scratch.
from scratch. Yes.
How did you take it?
I remember seeing one episode where my grandmother found that about 3 of the animals had died that night, and she was weeping, by the crow. And so I still remember vividly, and because that's, cattle is almost like it's an economic, asset, but also, we treat it more like it's also like a pet, like
It's part of
you are
you.
dear, they're dear, animals, they're dear, to us in our tradition and culture.
I'm asking this question because every time you're given something as a young person, you also begin to build your values around how you take care of it, how it grows, how it matures, how it multiplies. And so you experiencing that, ordeal where your cattle dies and you now I'm going to have more, I'm going to
Yes.
have, you build your life around if this job doesn't work, I still have this that can help me. And so that's just the narrative that I wanted to understand on how you responded and how you managed to, handle that. But even with that going away and beginning from scratch, how did that shape your outlook on life in general?
Well, so also because cattle actually is like a financial, insurance for in our setup, and so there was obviously economic impact as a result. And so most of our parents, before you go to school, whether it's high school or university, the recourse they have in terms of financial resources, is the animals, which they would normally, sell and then raise funding for your education. So there was a bit of that impact. But I think over time, the government, I do remember that they did intervene and drove a massive vaccination exercise in the province. I think there has been quite a lot of stability since then. And I'm usually very happy to see that a lot of families that lost their animals during those difficult times have, restocked, their livestock.
Did that change how you look at life in general?
I
Where
think,
one day you have this.
so when you see adversity as a young kid, so sometimes, you're emotionally, fragile, right? You're not very strong emotionally. So, but I think you can also learn that actually, maybe, life, you learn early on that adversity is part of life, actually.
So when you look back to your childhood, what experiences or values would you say shaped the person that you are today?
I'll say adversity. So, like I mentioned, we spoke about, my transition, and so I think when you look at life through the lens of adversity, then maybe you can be a little bit more considerate, maybe more compassionate, and maybe more empathetic, as you interact with others. And so usually you don't want to take things for granted because, by nature, it's not possible to know, what everyone else is going through. And you want your interactions to be based on the fact that, I think emotionally you don't want to worsen the situation for someone else. And I think, that's how I'd sum it up.
And sometimes in media or journalism, sometimes you have to make the hard decisions of telling the stories that would change how someone is looked at. And so I'm hearing you say this and I'm like, I would want to hear what the young journalist in you, the first story that you did that made you feel conflicted with what you're saying, where the story has to go out and how you're feeling about the person that you're writing about or the situation is conflicted.
Yeah, so I started my real journalism work as a second-year student on attachment, or as an intern at the Post newspaper then. Mm-hmm. And so within my first week, actually it was a weekend, I was assigned to cover a church event where the guest of honor was the then First Lady of the Republic of Zambia, Madam Vera Chiluba, the then wife to the late former President Frederick Chiluba. So the event was actually at the North Mid Assemblies of God in Lusaka, there in North Mid. And so I was very curious as a student, but also then as a reporter. So I before I went to the assignment, I asked the senior journalists, I won't mention the names, but I asked one of the senior journalists, I said, okay, so for a person like the First Lady, what questions, if I have the opportunity to ask them a question, what question can I ask them? Okay. He was almost like joking, but he says, there's talk that maybe the first family is going through difficulties in their marriage. Maybe you want to ask, that question. Yeah, so, I went to church. I sat in front there in the church, and, at the end of the service, and the message then, I think I remember by Bishop Joshua Banda, was around family, actually. And so I had a good entry point. So when the service was over, I positioned myself at
ready
the
to
exit.
ask the question.
And so when she came out, I just introduced myself as, sorry, I'm from the Post newspaper, and I have a few questions for the First Lady. I think the bishop then felt it wasn't appropriate for me to be asking her questions there. But she allowed me. She said, look, he can ask, And so I went ahead and I said, Madam First Lady, is it true that, your marriage is on the rocks? And
you asked it just like that.
Yes. So, and I remember that the bishop was not
He wasn't happy.
Amused, was not pleased, I said, no, you don't come and ask those kinds of questions. But I asked the question and she answered. But it's there in the record, public record, and she answered that everything was okay, so I exited. As I was waiting for my driver at the exit of the church, she saw me when she was driving out. Then she called me, and then she told me like, there's also talk about, that there's there's a child and all that, and I mean, she offloaded more. Like she offloaded more to me, and then I had even a richer story, and it
was the scoop.
The scoop, and it was a Sunday, and usually Sunday in the newsroom, you guys know, it's usually a dry day.
It's a dry day.
So I got this big story, and so when I went back to the newsroom, even the owner of the newspaper couldn't believe, that I came back with that story. Mm-hmm. And it was a big story. It sold very well. And that was like my first lead story as a reporter. And then I remember getting, financially compensated, and I was a student. I actually, the proprietor of the newspaper saying, this story has given us so much good business this week. And, I was given a special, financial sort of benefit as a student, you can imagine.
Behind the title, behind the prestige, they're hiding secrets, struggles, and stories untold. Meet the faces you know, but what about the people behind the masks? Who are they? Off the record.
For me to have food, it was a problem.
I was out of school for a year.
I went to do some piecework, very long piecework.
My career didn't start all rosy. Of course, started on a faster note at some point.
I've never drank in my life. I tried once and I was a bit noisy.
Yeah.
So I decided,
the end of it.
yeah, I decided, no, I'm not going to drink.
Yeah.
I'm one of those few that after completing grade 4, I only stayed for 5 months and I was already in tertiary education.
The question came and I said, I want to be president. I was laughed at.
I just wanted people to understand the implications or the things that happen when one is about to have a stroke.
And I want to confess that at one given time, I nearly crucified myself.
The journey, the struggles, the triumphs, it's time to get real. From the operating room to the boardroom, from the podium to the pulpit, we're going off the record. Unfiltered, unscripted, unforgettable.
And so then I continued when when I was still as an intern, I actually did another lead story, but this time I found myself in a meeting I wasn't supposed to be, but it was in a meeting of very senior political leaders.
And you were there.
I was there and I got what I needed. And by the time I think they were realizing that I was a stranger, my notebook was safe, and all I did is to follow up and to interview and collaborate a few of what had been said, and then I had what I needed for a big, good story. And so then I went back to university, and then I was asked that because I had demonstrated my ability actually to do the work of a reporter, I was asked that on a structured compensation basis, I would continue working on weekends whenever I was not in school. And so I carried on. By the time I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I already had an offer. I had a contract at the Post newspaper. And straight from my last exam, the next day, I was in full-time employment.
Wow. And I'm looking at all these, the two big stories you're talking about. I wish you told us what the second big story was. The first big story, I remember it because I was young, but the parents were talking about it. The parents were talking about it, now that's the report about post, And for me, because I always envisioned being a journalist one day, I looked forward to finding out who had the courage to ask such questions? And I'm seated here with the man who had the courage to ask such a question to the First Lady. And so with you moving like that at that time, did you have any fear at any point that,
I was very naive and oblivious to everything.
So it worked to your advantage?
Yes, I didn't worry about anything. Yeah, but... And sometimes, because I was still a student when I used to write, and sometimes I'll write about issues around the university. And a few times I got called, to the office of the Vice Chancellor. And so one time, actually, the Vice Chancellor followed me to my room and to ask why
are you writing
I
about
kept
the
writing
university?
About stuff around the university.
Why don't you come to my office and we talk about them?
Yes, and But I guess that's the nature of the job. I think for me, the challenge really maybe the complication is really that I was still a student. But I was very innocent, and I was just, as far as I was concerned, I was just being a reporter, and reporters do that kind of stuff.
We have so many young reporters coming up now, and the environment is very different compared to what you had then. Now there's a lot of tools available, but then also there's also a lot of dilution that is happening. And so referencing to how you started and what we are experiencing now, what would you prompt young journalists, especially those in school? Because I think that, idea of being a student and still working for an institution is still happening. Most universities and colleges encourage it, and you would see student journalists working for, media houses and, interning. But most of them, you find that because they are so curious, they are fresh, they have these ideas, sometimes they are suppressed by editorial policies and they feel, what is shroud, like they feel compressed, like they can't really go out as much as they would want. What worked for you that you feel could work for a young journalist in this day and age?
First of all, just from my own experience, I think a good grounding in the theories around journalism or general media work is an advantage. And so I would encourage everyone wanting to be a journalist or aspiring to be a journalist to, if they can, maybe invest a lot more in a professional qualification in the area. It just gives you a bit of an upper hand. I don't think that I don't know. I'm not sure whether I would have succeeded as a journalist if I didn't have the academic, grounding that I got. And so there's certain theories that you just want to make sure that you're familiar with as you go about your work. And so that's very important. And then I think that today, the advantage today is that technology is a good enabler for the profession in many ways. So the production capability. In our days, we will write, either we'll record an interview on a notebook with a backup of a recorder, right? Like a recorder. These days, and then you transcribe with your earphones and you got to transcribe, to retype what was said, or you're using shorthand in your notebook to, write the story. But today you've got a phone, you can speak to a news source, you just put your phone, you record. The same phone now has AI. You can ask it to, to convert the audio to text. You can even tell AI to write the story and see it, But in our time, it was different. I mean, if we were reporting from a rural outpost, let's say, far north in Mbala or far, west in Senanga, the only way to transmit your news story is through the fax machine, because then even internet was pretty much kind of a new thing. But that's how we did the work, more old style. And then you also, these days, you can type your story real time and you can post it even on your page. In our days, you come from covering an event or talking to a news source, you have to get back to the newsroom and then even maybe fight for a computer from which to type. If the number of journalists outnumbered the number of computers in your newsroom. And so all that. But I think today now technology has kind of bridged that gap. And there's really real opportunities for the current or aspiring sort of new journalists to actually do their work maybe a lot more better than we did it, back in the day. And so I'll just say that, but I think adopt technology also, because I think if you don't quickly adopt technology, you become a laggard, then you'll struggle to cope or even to succeed in the sector. So AI now, I think, is enabling a lot of work if it is used responsibly, ethically, professionally. It's a very good, useful tool to do your work a lot more smarter.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've moved from different industries, and I'm glad that you've spoken to the media side of the work that you did and where we are now. You've worked in journalism, banking, international development, and of course now back in media, but this time in media regulation or broadcasting regulation. Which transition among all this challenged you the most? And what did it teach you about yourself?
Yeah, I would say that all the transitions...
You don't say?
Have been, because it's kind of a new thing.
So you're moving from one field to another?
Yes, but the one that was a lot more difficult for me was moving from active journalism to corporate comms, public relations, because when I went into the bank, I went with the idea that, because when you're a journalist, you're looking for facts and lay out the facts and then let the public judge. So then I would go sometimes asked to draft a statement about something about the bank, and then I'll be told, oh, no, there's too much detail here.
Make the bank look good. So you would write it as it is.
So I would say, like, okay, we need to be transparent, But I say, look, not anything like that is, out of this world, but, some things that you just don't want, maybe they can be embarrassing. And
or
misinterpreted, and then I think that it was a bit of a journey for me, but over time, I think I overcome that. And also because I came purely from writing news, I had no experience in running things end to end from a project management perspective. So, I had to spend a lot more time to just learn how to, take charge of, an assignment from end to end and see it through. Because as a journalist, sometimes, of course, I was an editor. I had responsibilities both on the editorial side and administration, taking care of, administration issues for my staff and my department. But then I think when you go into a big international financial institution, you find the structures are a bit more rigorous. And, I think, work is also structured in a certain way, and there's expectation in terms of how you take, accountability for everything that sits in your space. And so I also had to quickly learn there. And also because it was a massive organization, you have to learn how your work actually is also dependent on multiple stakeholders internally and externally. So you learn not to work more in a closed cycle. So you develop, you have to develop, strong relationships with different people across the organization and externally. Otherwise you would fail in your job.
What did you discover you had that you did not know you had during that transition? What did you learn about yourself?
I think adaptive. I think I have learned that I can be quite adaptive quickly, because again, if you're not adaptive in a new setup, then you will struggle or you will fail. And so I was quickly adaptive. I became very close friends with some of the seasoned bankers. I won't mention them. And because they were at it, within the sector much longer than me, and I learned quite quickly the ropes of how, the corporate, world operates. And so I think just being adaptive and I think the ability to, quickly change if you have to change tack because you are in a new setup. I think that has helped also in all the transitions that I've undergone ever since.
Oh. When everything is done, you're going home, family always plays a huge role. I want to get to know a bit more on how you met your wife, Okay. Was it the time of you being in high school? There's this thing people know, she's my high school sweetheart. Was it in college? Was it later on?
So what happened is it was at the University of Zambia. But my wife was not a student then, although she later became a student. So she had an elder sister who was my classmate. Now they have a resemblance. So we were doing registration in the sports hall at UNZA there. And so I saw someone who looked like my classmate. And so because I was trying to jump the queue, so the plan was I go to chat up with my classmate, and then in the process, then I sneak myself into the queue. Because those days it was like long winded queues. To snake around the whole campus just to do registration. It was too purely manual. So because you have to do so many things. And so when I went there, only to discover, no, it wasn't my classmate. It was actually the sister. But she had just come to visit because she had just finished her high school. And so I said, oh, I thought you were my classmate. So I said, no, it's my sister. I'm standing in for her. She's doing other stuff. Then,
once it's her turn,
then she'll come up, So that's how we got, chatting.
You still didn't move. You still chatted the
Yes,
resemblance.
I continued, And then, then the rest is history.
There's what they call the pickup line, There's what they call the pickup line. You discover this is not your classmate, but her sister.
Yeah.
And you still stand to chat. I think the gentleman would want some tips on how to...
So what happened is, obviously I found out how long she was around. And then I knew that she was always in the sister's room. And so I pretended one evening that I was looking for a textbook from her sister, and I found her there. And I think for some reason the sister...
she read in between the lines.
And then, then I managed to...
I think those days dodging these questions. Listen how he's trying to drink his coffee.
There were no phones then. And so, but I just told her where my room was, and then we could do lunch before she went back. They were coming from Livingston then. And then, then we had lunch. And then a year later, she actually came as a student. And then, then we carried on, and we're still together.
See, DG has just summarized a whole... over 10, 20 years, beautiful story in just a few minutes. And he's trying as much as possible to not give the details. I mean, you were still in university at the time you met her. And a year later, of course, she joined you in university. How has the growth been for both of you, moving from school into work and now officially getting married? I ask this because sometimes as you're pursuing a career and as you are growing, it's very possible for two people who seem to like each other to grow apart, Yeah,
I would say because maybe we were younger and our lives were like an open book then. We knew each other and our flaws, everything.
Lusaka wasn't for business at that time, huh?
Yeah. So our flaws and everything. So there's really like nothing that she doesn't know much about me, And nothing much that I don't know much about her. Maybe I would say that maybe that's a bit of an advantage. Actually, the other truth is that when she was in second year, we had our first, child.
Oh.
I was, our firstborn. And then obviously when she finished university, we took time and I let her settle, find work, and then we decided then to get together. But we've been together pretty much about 28 years.
I'm sure my camera person just took notes.
So,
he says he needs past papers.
But married for about 21 years. But we've been together for about 28 years. So that's so you can see that we've pretty much spent
a lot of time together.
The majority of our life time together.
How has she influenced your career and, helped in every transition?
So I would actually say that, because I was young, especially when I was still a young professional, and sometimes I would want to make, silly professional, decisions, and then she'll be the one who would be telling me, no, look, this is not how things are, be patient. And there was one time when I was upset about something, and I asked her, we were not even married yet, so I told her I was not very happy with what had happened at work, and then I told her that I was going to quit, and she told me, but that's trivial. You can quit over such a thing. You're being trivial. So then...
Was that the term she used?
Sorry, yeah. That's what, so that's what she told me. Said, no, that's trivial. You can't make such a career decision over such a matter, because you get over it. And but she's also been very supportive when I got into my regional role. in 2010 in South Africa at Barclays Africa Regional Office then. She had her own, thriving career, as an HR professional in the public service. But she gave that up to join me and support, my new career journey, outside Zambia.
How important is it for every man to pick the right partner? And when do you know you have the right partner?
Well, I'm not a marriage counselor, so I'm not sure I'm qualified to give advice because I might mislead. I might mislead.
Okay, but for you, maybe, because you see, almost every successful man who is married will talk about how their wife has been of support, just as you have said. And sometimes young men don't see that as an important factor.
So I think in every relationship, if you take an approach of give and take, for me, from our experiences, things work like, okay, here's a situation, here's another situation. Where do we find the balance? Mm-hmm. Who takes the lead here now? Who takes the opportunity and who loses out on another opportunity? And then I think if you have that understanding, that's how we've always kind of done it, to say, look, there's an opportunity for you. Is it good for the family? Or is it good for you also? Does it disrupt your own life, your own profession? And sometimes, but you can weigh, if the other loss, it can be compensated by maybe the other win. Then you try to see how you work things out. Because sometimes in these relationships, you want win-win, but
the women always must win. I'm joking.
But real life doesn't work like that, all the time.
And you see, DG just answered it in a very objective manner, not siding with the woman or the man, just objectivity there, reminding you that ethics are still at play.
Welcome to Luna Lifestyle TV. You didn't know you needed us until now. It's lifestyle, but we make it legendary. From smoothie goals to the core that scores. We're not just here to show you how to live better. We're here to make you say, wait a minute, do people actually do that? Wellness meets weirdly specific goals, and your vibe meets your tribe. You have now entered the Luna Kitchen. Side effects may include an appeased appetite and the desire to do it yourself. So go on, live light, live bold, live Luna.
I should have turned this on long ago.
What hobbies or interests help you disconnect from the work, when you're away from the office, away from all the duties? What helps you disconnect and just get in touch with yourself?
So maybe because of my original career as a journalist, I'm addicted to information or just wanting to know a lot of what is happening. So I tend to read a lot, and these days digital has made it easier. So if I want to look for information on something, quickly I can find it. But traditionally I've been, reader of, hard copy books, and I read a variety of topics. But I also spend a lot of time just listening to or following news, especially global current affairs, both local, regional, and global current affairs. When I have time, I haven't done a lot of sports. Previously, when I had a lot of time, I would play a bit of some golf.
Oh,
I
okay.
do watch. I'm very much a very junior handicap, and I barely, have a handicap, but I do have an idea of how to play golf. I watch sports when I can, because I spend a lot of time in South Africa. I got addicted to rugby.
Did you ever play?
No, I never played rugby.
But you would watch it?
But I watch, I love watching it. I also love to watch a lot of tennis. Basically, I watch most of the major tournaments, the major opens.
Recently, my colleague and I were watching the Wimbledon, and everybody was coming in so dressed up.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what is happening? These, gowns and all that they're wearing. How, And I guess, did you catch that?
Yeah, I've seen. My favorite player hasn't, been in good shape recently, but I won't mention the name. But yeah, it's always Wimbledon, French Open, US Open, Australia Open. Really, I always look forward to watching this.
Wow. If you had a chance to choose any other career, what would be your first choice?
I'll still choose journalism. And I always tell people, actually, there was a point when I was still at university, one lecturer was convincing me to switch to law school. And I said, no, I think I'm good for what I signed up. I mean, much later, someone was encouraging me that, you can... I said, no, I didn't make a mistake. I think I like what I studied, and, I'm very happy to be a journalist any day.
Well, finally, when your career is one day reflected upon, either by you, the people that have worked with you, your family, children, what legacy do you hope you would have left? Not just in terms of the titles, but in the lives of the people and institutions you have influenced.
Yeah, it can sound a bit preposterous for me to say. The only thing I can say is that obviously when I chose to get into this job, the idea for me was, look, how can I contribute to making the broadcasting industry better in my country? And with my experience, both starting off as a journalist, but also with quite a fair level of corporate executive experience, how can I apply all my knowledge and experience to help better the broadcasting industry in Zambia? And I look forward to a day, and I'm not suggesting that things are bad. There is always room for improvement in many areas. I look forward to a day when, maybe I would have contributed to setting, higher level standards when it comes not just content programming standards, but even the state of the industry, the infrastructure, what else, can we do, and making the regulator, become more an enabler of an industry, which I believe, because we are in the information age, and I think broadcasting is pretty much within that space. And it can be, not just even a lever in terms of the economic growth of our country, but I think itself, can benefit, from the economic benefits, that we are seeing in terms of the potential for our economy. As our economy continues to grow, all other subsector industry will also benefit commercial and economically. And I would like to see, that day that, I'm no longer in this role, that I would have played kind of a stewardship role in that evolution of the broadcasting sector, and a positive evolution And so I think just to sum it up, really, I hope that when I'm no longer in this role, in the future, someone will say that I played a stewardship role in that regard.
Wow. And we look forward to being part of that stewardship role and the evolution of the industry, as you're saying. As we close, you mentioned books that you've read. I would like you to give me your top 3 picks that you would even recite or remember the summary of in a minute.
There are many, but...
There are many top 3s. That's a beautiful one.
One good, because I never studied economics, but I'm interested in... although my master's is in business, but I'm always interested in, political economic literature. So one of my favorite books is by Adam Smith, as a neoclassical economist. The book is called Wealth of Nations.
Wealth of Nations.
So it's about 900 pages, but these days you can listen to it. I've read it and then I've listened to the audio.
Everything.
Yeah.
See, that's the passion.
And so,
the second one?
The second one is by the former U.S. President, dreams of my father, Barack Obama. It's a very interesting life story, very interesting story. I'll say that one. And
the final one.
It's a bit. It's also a biography. I like biographies, but it's a biography again by the former U.S. president. It's called Decision Points. George W. Bush. And so that book really, what I learned from there, I was prejudiced against, his presidents. But when I read his book, it made me reflect that, maybe
you judged him
maybe
so
some
harsh.
of the decisions that were made under his presidents, maybe they were not
as bad as they
absolutely wrong, but when I read the book and there's some parts where, he actually talks about crying, in the background of a certain decision. So I think I would say maybe those ones but I've read many other biographies, but I think maybe those
top
3.
Those 3.
Yes, I can read them in the...
Now I'm thinking of reading them because I have judged, the former U.S. president harshly sometimes, and maybe I should read it and understand the tears behind the hard decisions that he would make as president. But I have to make another hard decision to wrap up the show because I had more questions after hearing the books that he has read, because now I was prompted to ask some questions that were leading to some of the, conversations we have had off the record, but we have to go. Thank you so much, DG, for joining us on today's edition of Off the Record.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Lombe.
Thank you so much. I hope next time we catch him to be a marriage counselor so that he can give us more details. 28 years is a long time. I literally saw my camera person saying, I'm a past papers. Because every time you're going into an exam, you look through your past papers. Maybe DG needs to write some past papers. But for those of you that have been following us, you are watching Lunar Lifestyle TV. Do follow us on YouTube, and that is Lunar Lifestyle TV ZM, and you will be able to catch this full episode and many more that we have for you to watch off the record. My name is Lombe Chiti. Thank you so much for joining us.